update, a high-profile case will move from Jackson County to Lawrence County. We're talking about Quake Lewellyn's capital murder case. Court records show that Judge Rob Ratton ordered today the case be moved. This comes after Lewellyn's lawyers asked for the change of venue, arguing that it would be hard and nearly impossible to get an impartial jury in the case. Now, if you recall, Lewellyn is accused of killing Sydney Sutherland of Jackson County. He was arrested August 2020 on suspicion of capital murder, rape, and kidnapping. He's due back in court on October 4th for a second hearing on the series of defense motions in the case. Now let's take a look back at the case. Sydney Sutherland was reported missing after she went for a jog on August 19th, 2020. Her body was found days later near the area where friends and family were searching with investigators. Now, the very next day, we reported Lewellyn was arrested in this case and that he knew Sutherland. Lewellyn appeared in court the next Monday, where a judge found probable cause to charge him with capital murder, kidnapping, and rape. On September 10th, we learned that Sutherland died from blunt force trauma. The state crime lab also called this a murder investigation.
Today, we delve into a case that ripped through the heart of a close-knit community, transforming an ordinary afternoon jog into an unimaginable tragedy. This is the harrowing story of a life stolen far too soon, and the lasting impact it left on those who loved her. Our journey begins in Grubbs, Arkansas, a small town in Jackson County, where life moved at a different pace. With a population just over 300, generations had lived here, forging deep bonds and a pervasive sense of safety. It was a place where everyone knew everyone, and a quiet afternoon was just that. Quiet. Sydney Sutherland, at 25 years old, was a vibrant thread in this community's fabric. The third child of Maggie and Dion, she was cherished by her older brothers, Tyler and Sam, who were fiercely protective. Maggie described Sydney as her best friend, inseparable, sharing every conversation and every moment. Sydney radiated warmth, known for her friendly demeanor, a brilliant smile, and a spirit that lit up every room. For 4 years, Alex had been her devoted boyfriend. Her passions were simple yet profound. Long walks with her dogs, dedicated workouts, leisurely shopping trips, and most of all, doting on her young nephews, who affectionately called her Aunt Sassy. Her best friend Jordan eloquently stated that Sydney possessed an uncanny ability to understand her friend's needs, knowing precisely what to offer and when. Her high school yearbook quote perfectly encapsulated her essence. The meaning of life is to find your gift. Giving things away is what life is all about. This was Sydney, helpful, encouraging, and deeply caring. These qualities made her an exceptional nurse at the Harris Medical Center, a calling she embraced wholeheartedly. In the autumn of 2020, Sydney and her family enjoyed a peaceful summer vacation in Destin, Florida, returning home on August 18th, 2021. The following day, Sydney's Ring camera captured her, fresh from an hour-long workout with her trainer, unloading her car in her exercise gear. Unpacking from her trip, she made a quick stop at her mom Maggie's to drop off some mail. She shared her plans, bake cookies or brownies, and then squeeze in a run. Maggie, ever the concerned mother, urged her not to overdo it, to not push herself too hard. Working out was a cornerstone of Sydney's routine, almost a daily ritual. Even after a gym session, the allure of the pleasant weather for a refreshing run to clear her mind was irresistible. As she left, Sydney called out, "Sweetheart, I'll talk to you later." Maggie's loving reply echoed back, "I love you too." Back home, Sydney activated her Apple Watch and set out. Between 2:30 and 3 p.m., a UPS driver spotted her running near State Highway 18. a quiet stretch connecting Newport and Grubbs. He remembered her distinctly. Such deserted roads rarely saw other people or vehicles. There was no one else around, just a scattering of homes and farms, truly in the middle of nowhere. Hours later, Alex, at home, began to worry. Sydney hadn't checked in. Maggie hadn't heard from her since she left. Sydney's phone went straight to voicemail. No Snapchat updates, no return texts for hours. A profound unease settled in. This was utterly unlike Sydney. She would never cause concern. Had she fallen and injured herself? Or had something far more sinister occurred? Crime was a rarity in Grubbs. It was simply not that kind of town. As darkness fell and the air grew colder, law enforcement mobilized, launching an immediate and extensive search. By 7 a.m. the next morning, the search had swelled to include Sydney's family, the FBI, Arkansas State Police, the U.S. Marshals, the Arkansas Department of Correction, and 3 additional police stations. During a brief respite, Maggie spoke with Quake Lewellyn, a well-known local farmer who had been a few years ahead of Sydney in school. He confirmed seeing her running, noting nothing unusual. No signs of injury, no one following her, by foot or by car. News reports quickly spread, highlighting the multi-agency search for the missing 25-year-old jogger, last seen on Highway 18 between Newport and Grubbs. County Road 41, her usual jogging route, was now teeming with searchers. Jackson County Sheriff David Lucas stated they were exhausting every option. Sydney had her phone and Apple Watch. Pings from her phone confirmed she was in the general area where Quake and the UPS driver last saw her. Sheriff Lucas emphasized their concentration on that specific zone, with volunteers like White Brown joining the effort, hoping to find any sign of her. The search area, a staging ground for the operation, yielded no immediate leads. The sheriff's office urged anyone with information to come forward. The next day, a crucial find. Sydney's phone, intact and undamaged, was discovered on the ground, less than a quarter mile from her house. Over the next 24 hours, the number of helpers grew to 300, but a growing dread gnawed at everyone. Sydney was petite, only 5 feet 3 inches and 103 pounds. An attack or abduction on those winding, desolate roads would have been terrifyingly easy. Maggie, on her hands and knees, meticulously searching the roadsides, found a tiny white bead. A bead her daughter's watch band had once held. A vigil was held for those not actively searching, the town utterly paralyzed since Sydney's disappearance. On Friday, August 21st, the search resumed at first light. Law enforcement announced they were pursuing several leads. Just hours later, the devastating news broke. A suspect was in custody, taken to the Jackson County Jail. No name was released then, but the missing person case was about to take a heartbreaking turn. That evening, the grim confirmation came. Sydney Sutherland's body had been found. Hidden in a small hole in a field near the search area, the medical examiner's report confirmed she died from multiple severe blows to the head. Sheriff David Lucas, visibly shaken, shared the profound personal impact of the case. "It hits me here," he said, tears in his eyes. "I know the family, know them well. I know Sydney. Watched her grow up. She went to school with my girls. The community rallied, determined to honor Sydney's light, to remember what she left behind." Only 2 days after her disappearance, police named their suspect, 28-year-old Quake Lewellyn, the same Quake who had told Maggie he saw Sydney running, the same Quake who had been part of the search parties and Facebook groups, offering comfort to the family, even hugging Maggie. Maggie recounted their interaction. "Quake, can you tell me anything? What was Sydney doing? Did you see anything unusual? Did you meet anybody unusual?" His simple reply, "No, she was just running." And then the hug. Maggie said, "Something felt odd." She walked back to the group, expressing her unsettling feeling. Quake, a married man with 3 stepchildren, was a third-generation farmer managing 6,000 acres. He was well known, his family having received the Jackson County Farm Family of the Year award in 2016. Police stated Sydney and Quake were Facebook friends, though the depth of their acquaintance remained unclear. By placing himself as potentially the last person to see her alive, Quake had put himself squarely on the police's radar. Quake and his father granted detectives permission to search his pickup truck. Immediately, blood was found on the tailboard. His phone data showed him near where Sydney's phone was found, and her body was discovered right next to his farm. CCTV footage from his home revealed him leaving in his truck and returning later with a fresh dent. Quake confessed. He hit Sydney with his truck. Then, fearing trouble, he lost his cool. He claimed it was an accidental hit, his view obscured by a dust cloud. He admitted to placing her in the truck, driving for a time, then removing her clothes and messing with her before burying her. He told police he put the clothes he was wearing during the murder in a laundry basket at his mother's house, where he lived. Police recovered a black shirt with blonde hair and a pair of black and pink shorts. Quake Lewellyn was charged with capital murder, rape, and kidnapping. He pleaded not guilty, but was soon found competent to stand trial. The possibility of the death penalty loomed. His wife filed for divorce. Police confirmed she had no involvement and no knowledge of her husband's heinous capabilities. An anonymous source claimed Quake had a history of unsettling behavior, including attempts to look into women's windows, watching them change or shower, and even following younger girls. Disturbingly, he was also rumored to have brutally harmed animals. The Arkansas State Police's theory was chilling. They believed Quake saw Sydney while driving west on County Road 41. He quickly turned around, intentionally struck her, abducted her, placed her in the back of his truck, and drove off. He then sexually assaulted her and buried her. Sydney's funeral saw an outpouring of grief and support, streamed live for all to attend. Despite Quake's claims of an accidental hit, a stark contrast to the prosecution's belief, discussions turned to his mental health and fitness for trial. He reportedly stated he had simply returned to his normal life, trying to forget the killings, and asserted, "I knew I didn't kill her on purpose." Ultimately, the Sutherland family, after much deliberation, agreed to a plea deal. They chose to forgo the death penalty and drop the charges of kidnapping and abuse of a corpse. While justice was paramount, the family also yearned for closure, for an end to the agonizing ordeal with as little prolonged stress as possible. Amy Lovelin, the mother of Quake's girlfriend, hoped he wouldn't face the death penalty, wishing him to join the rest of society and find happiness. Sydney's mother, Maggie, however, expressed a profound sentiment. "I don't like him. I know that's a really bad word. No one has ever made me hate them. I'll let that go one day for my own peace of mind. I'm winning against evil. As long as I feel that way, evil will not beat me. I'll never forget or forgive you. I need to let that part go, though." As part of the plea deal, Quake admitted to rape and murder with the intent to kill. In a powerful courtroom statement, Maggie, Sydney's mother, demanded Quake look her directly in the eyes. "You weren't allowed to take her. You killed her with the same hands that you used to hug me. For Sydney, my daughter, to be truly fair, she should be here. We will never get back what you took away from us 408 days ago. Did she fight you? Did she cry? Did she ask for her brothers? Was it really worth it? It makes me happy to know that from now on, people will just call you a number. Quake Lewellyn received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Asked for any last words or regrets, he offered none. The judge approved the plea deal, bringing a measure of closure to the Sutherland family. Maggie Sutherland articulated her relief. She would never again have to worry about Quake Lewellyn. His defense team noted the death penalty was a likely outcome if the case had gone to trial, but Sydney's family chose life. Quake's distant cousin, Tammy Watson, spoke of her heartbreak for his parents, who had urged him to tell them the truth. Quake Lewellyn had finally answered for his horrendous actions, and Maggie Sutherland, with the final word, walked out of court. That afternoon, Sydney went for a run down a road she had known since childhood, a warm, pleasant day that held no hint of the darkness to come. How swiftly everything changed, and how profound the damage. Yet Sydney's spirit endures. Runs and events are still held in her honour, participants often wearing pink, her favourite colour. One such event, Finish Sydney's Run, takes place annually. Danielle Wright, who grew up with Sydney, explains her motivation. I literally would just kind of replay over and over in my mind, Sydney didn't get to finish this. This social media challenge encourages others to go the distance and tag friends, reminding everyone that Sydney's run doesn't have to end. With every step of the 8.19-mile run, Danielle thinks of her friend who never made it home. Her spirit is just soaring through every run, through every Facebook share. Her story is being told, and people are wanting to know who is Sydney. The flyover between Highway 67 and State Highway 167, near County Road 41, where she was running, was dedicated in her honour. Maggie wears a chain with a tiny bead she found on the ground during the search. The Sutherland family established a trust in Sydney's honour, and a grant now supports future Arkansas State University students pursuing medicine in their small town. Sydney's presence, though altered, is still palpable. As her friend Melanie shared, Sydney's life was beautiful. Sydney was, in essence, the best part of what every person wants to be. Thank you for watching. If Sydney's story touched you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to help keep her memory alive and raise awareness for victims of violence. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop seeking justice.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into a collection of sources, news reports, video transcripts, some online discussions too.
Yeah, all centering on this really tragic event in a small Arkansas town, Grubbs, and the details that emerged about the person responsible.
Exactly. Our goal here is to sort of sift through all this information, pull out the key insights, and basically trace the timeline, from the disappearance itself through the investigation, what happened legally.
Right. We'll look at what the sources tell us about the victim, Sydney Sutherland, the search effort, which was massive, the person who confessed, and importantly, the community's reaction.
It is a sensitive subject, so we need to be clear. We're sticking strictly to what's reported in the sources we have, presenting it factually.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump in. The core event, Sydney Sutherland's disappearance in Grubbs, Arkansas. She was 25, a nurse. The sources describe her as, energetic, charismatic, just really loved.
And Grubbs is tiny, right? Like just over 300 people. A farming community, very close-knit. So her disappearance would have hit hard.
Definitely. She went missing August 19th, 2020. She'd gone for a jog, which sources say she did often, on this rural road near her home. Probably around, what, 2.0 or 3.00 p.m.?
Yeah, somewhere in that window. And the last confirmed sighting mentioned was by a UPS driver.
And her family knew something was wrong pretty quickly. She didn't return. Her phone went straight to voicemail. That wasn't like her at all, apparently.
No. So her boyfriend, her family, they didn't wait. They started searching the area right away themselves.
And that search just grew, didn't it? It escalated fast.
Oh, absolutely. You had local law enforcement, state police, the FBI, even U.S. Marshals involved, plus hundreds, literally hundreds of community volunteers.
That community response is really highlighted in the sources. People out searching fields, roads, day and night, even when it was dark.
Yeah, that dedication really comes through. And the sheriff, David Lucas, he knew Sydney and her family personally. He mentioned how this case, really impacted him. It felt personal.
You see that connection in small towns. Then there was a key development the next night, August 20th.
Right, her cell phone was found about a quarter mile from her home, sources say, and it was intact.
Finding the phone must have been, significant.
Huge, yeah. It helped authorities narrow down that search area, gave them a more focused place to look.
Okay, so while this massive search is going on, this local farmer, Quake Lewellyn, he comes into the picture.
Right. Sources say he knew the Sutherland family, and he mentioned he'd actually seen Sydney running that afternoon. She disappeared.
And there's this really difficult detail. Sydney's mother, Maggie, she actually spoke to Lewellyn during the search, asked him if he'd seen anything unusual.
And he apparently just said Sydney was just running, but then he gave her a hug.
Which Maggie later described as feeling odd. Just something wasn't right about it. A mother's intuition, maybe.
It's chilling in retrospect. And then, tragically, the search ended on August 21st.
Sydney's body was found in a shallow grave on farmland nearby, about 1.5 miles from her home, the sources say.
And that farmland? It was connected to Llewellyn's family. Because of the condition of the body, they needed scientific testing, DNA, to formally confirm it was Sydney.
The cause of death was later listed as multiple blunt force injuries.
And things moved very quickly after the body was found. Within hours, Quake Lewellyn was arrested.
His father actually escorted him to the state police headquarters, is that right?
Yeah, that's what the sources indicate. And Llewellyn apparently gave permission for his truck to be searched.
Which turned out to be crucial, because they found evidence.
They did. Blood evidence in the cracks of the tailgate, according to reports. And there was video from his home.
Right. The video showed him leaving, coming back, and the truck had a new dent in the hood. He was even seen looking at it on the video.
Plus, cell phone data placed his phone near where Sydney's body was discovered. A lot of pieces starting to fit together for investigators.
So after his arrest, what did Llewellyn say happened? Initially, at least.
Well, according to a probable cause affidavit mentioned in the sources, he initially confessed. Said he hit Sydney with his truck, drove somewhere else, raped her, and then buried her body.
Okay, but that's not the only account he gave, is it? The story seems to have shifted later.
It did. There's information from a psychologist who evaluated him for the trial. Lewellyn told the psychologist something different. He claimed he hit her accidentally.
Accidentally?
Yeah, that he thought he'd killed her on impact, and then he panicked, basically.
Yeah.
Afraid of getting in trouble.
So what did he say he did then in this version?
He told the psychologist he put her body in his truck, drove to a rice field, a place he said he was already heading anyway, and dug a hole because, quote, that was just where I was and where I was going to begin with.
Just matter of fact, like that?
Apparently. He also allegedly admitted to removing her clothes, and his words were something like trying to mess with her before burying her.
And then,
he told the psychologist, he just went back to his normal routine, ate dinner, tried to, quote, just forget about it.
Wow. That's quite a contrast to the initial confession. And he later recanted the confession, pleaded not guilty initially.
Correct. These different stories, they raise a lot of questions about what really happened, his intent, maybe attempts to minimize things. The sources don't give us a final answer on that, just present the different accounts.
And then there are these other disturbing details that came out, allegations about his past.
Yeah, this comes from an anonymous acquaintance interviewed by Today in Fort Smith. This person described Lewellyn as, quote, always been trouble since he was young.
What kind of trouble?
Pretty serious allegations. Peering into women's windows, supposedly being fascinated with and stalking young girls. This source even claimed Lewellyn had to be warned away from their niece's property.
That's deeply concerning. And there was more, wasn't there? About animals.
Yes. The source claimed rumors about him hurting animals were true, alleging he would put small animals, like cats, in a microwave Just horrific stuff. This acquaintance didn't mince words, called him the monster.
And all this time, he was married.
He was. Married with 3 stepchildren, according to the sources. His wife filed for divorce pretty quickly after his arrest. Some speculation in the reports that the marriage might have been, for appearances.
Despite all this, and his lawyer raising questions about his mental state, the evaluation found him competent.
Yes, the psychologist concluded he was competent for trial and didn't show signs of mental disease or defect at the time of the crime itself.
The sources also mentioned some online chatter, right? Speculation about motives.
A little bit. An unconfirmed rumor about maybe a conflict over land inheritance after someone in the family died. But that seems purely speculative from forum discussions.
And this brings up that legal point, the open fields doctrine. How does that fit in?
Well, it's relevant because it explains how investigators might have legally searched that farmland, his family's property, where Sydney was found, possibly without needing a warrant for the open areas. It allows searches of open fields even if they're private property.
Got it. So you have his shifting stories, these really disturbing past allegations. It fueled discussion about whether this was premeditated, maybe stalking, versus his claim of an accident and panic.
Exactly. The alleged history, combined with the later acts of rape and burial, it certainly makes you question the accident narrative.
And his behavior during the search adds another strange layer. He joined the Facebook group trying to find Sydney.
He did, and claimed he was part of the search party, which, sources note, isn't actually that unusual for perpetrators. Sometimes they do that to monitor the investigation, maybe try to steer it.
There was even speculation he might have moved the body.
Yeah, some thought he might have moved her as the search got closer to his property. It's hard to know for sure, but it's part of the picture painted by the sources.
So bringing it to the legal conclusion, what were the final charges and the outcome?
He was charged with capital murder, rape, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse. And prosecutors did consider the death penalty initially.
But it ended in a plea deal.
It did. October 1st, 2021. Lewellyn pleaded guilty to capital murder and rape.
And in return,
the prosecution agreed not to seek the death penalty. And the kidnapping and abuse of a corpse charges were dropped.
So the sentence was
life in prison without the possibility of parole.
And at the sentencing, Sydney's family spoke. The victim impact statements sounded incredibly powerful.
They really were, based on the reporting. Her mother, Maggie, spoke directly to Lewellyn, expressed her devastation. And she said those words, "The hands you hugged me with are the same hands you killed her with." Just gut-wrenching.
Her father, Dion, too, called him a 300-pound coward using a 3,000-pound truck against his daughter.
Yeah, and her brother, Sam, expressed this wish for no mercy for his soul. The family and friends wore pink in court for Sydney.
A symbol of her spirit, and that spirit, her memory, it really does live on in that community, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The sources make that clear. There's an overpass near where she was last seen, renamed in her honor.
And they hold events.
Yeah, an annual 5K run called Finish Sydney's Run, and a pageant, Miss Sassy, which was apparently her nickname. There's also a foundation.
Right, the foundation gives scholarships to nursing students, helps local teachers. It reflects the person she was, the reports say.
It really does. It shows how deeply she impacted people and how they're determined to keep her memory positive and active, turning tragedy into something that helps others. It's a powerful legacy.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we followed the thread from Sydney's disappearance during that run through the community's search, the discovery,
to the identification of Quake Lewellyn, the evidence against him, his really inconsistent accounts of what happened, and those disturbing background allegations that came out.
We looked at the plea deal, the life sentence, and how profoundly Sydney's death impacted her family and the whole town of Grubbs.
And how they continued to honor her memory with the memorials, the run, the foundation, keeping her spirit alive.
It's a case that, looking through these sources, really underscores the complexities of human behavior. And it's a stark reminder, isn't it, that terrible things can happen even in places that feel safe and familiar.
Absolutely. The darkness can be closer than anyone suspects sometimes.
Looking back at all this information we've gone through, what's the one thing that really stands out to you?